Hey everyone, good morning and welcome to the October 1st Friday Facebook Live on the Ask a Bookkeeper show. It's kind of funny that this is our first Friday Facebook Live since currently Facebook Live is not working. So we are just recording this on Zoom, going to post it on YouTube and in the Facebook group later. And for those of you who are looking at the Facebook group for the Facebook Live, hopefully you see my post saying, hey everyone, we're on Zoom, here's the link, and you're welcome to join us here on Zoom. Our mission here on Ask a Bookkeeper is to take the big, intimidating ideas that often scare small business owners away from following their dreams, and we simplify them and turn them into just another part of the adventure of running a small business. So think of us kind of like Sesame Street for small business owners. Our show is largely crowdfunded, which is why we're not advertising or thanking any sponsors today. So if this information is helpful to you and you want to see this show succeed and grow, please visit askabookkeeper.com and click the button to donate. From there, you can access our YouTube channel and our Facebook group where you can catch past episodes and participate in the ongoing discussions between episodes that can help your business succeed. And pretty please subscribe to us on YouTube and be sure to tell your friends how awesome this is. I am your host, Ingrid Edstrom, the Priestess of Profits, and with me today is my co-host, Penny the Practical Professional.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here.
And I'm very excited to introduce our special guest, Robina Bennion, and she is going to share with us an amazing story that can help each of us get out of our own way and become who we really want to be in our businesses and in our lives. So Robina, welcome to Ask a Bookkeeper. Will you please tell our audience a little bit more about yourself and your business?
Sure. Well, thank you. First of all, I'm really excited to be here. And so a little bit about myself. I was in public accounting for 25 years, decided to leave a couple of years ago and just start out on my own after just realizing that there was more out there that I wanted to do and more that I wanted to give to the world. So I started my own consulting business, doing some CFO work and bookkeeping work. And then after that, the universe just kind of spoke to me. People kept coming to me and saying, do you do budgeting? Do you help people with their finances? And I wanted to do more than just put together a budget for people. I actually don't even use that word. I say cash flow planning, and really started looking at that as a CPA myself. I knew there were things that I didn't accomplish personally with my own goals, and I wanted to dig deeper into why that was. So I became a certified money coach, and after that started my new business, which is I am a relationship coach for your soul, yourself, and your money. So
I like that.
To where we are today.
Excellent. Oh, I love that idea. So if I could ask real quick, why did you decide not to use the word budget, instead use cash flow plan?
Well, what I found is that even for myself, but when I talk to people, you say the word budget and it's like saying the word diet. The moment that you use the word, people have this resistance to it, versus if you say, oh, let's do some cash flow planning, it has more of that positive feel to it. And when I'm working with people, it's all about like their beliefs and their behaviors and their patterns. So I wanted to help them create some new beliefs around money. And if they had resistance to the word budget, then let's create some new beliefs and positive beliefs relative to what they wanted to achieve in their goals.
That's absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Everyone loves the words cash and flow. So together, cash flow is just a good thing.
Right.
And I love what you said about budget being kind of like diet. Yeah, it has that same kind of trigger. Oh, seriously, we have to response.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I want to really quick just share my screen and actually pull up your website, Robina, because when I first saw your website, I was like, oh my gosh, our audience needs to hear about this and where we're going. So this is Robina's website. And the first thing we see here is, I believe every person has a moment when their soul will no longer be denied. That moment either stalls you out or wakes you up. I believe this because I've been there. And I'm like, oh, that's a story. And I would love for you to share that story with our audience here on Ask a Bookkeeper so that we can hear about the experience that you've had in, getting out of your own way and finding that moment when your soul just would no longer be denied. And how can our audience members find that for themselves as well?
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
And work the dinosaur in as much as you can.
Yeah. Well, I look at him because it's kind of like that. I brought him A because Penny makes pies and Mr. T loves pies, but also just it comes into what this is that we're going to talk about today. But for me, this really did come from a personal, story within. As I shared, I worked in public accounting for 25 years, and along the way, there were just nudges that were saying, this isn't in alignment with who I am. And I was losing who I was at the core in the process. And I was becoming very unhappy, but I was just so unaware of it because I was just disconnected from my heart, from my head, from my soul. And things just kept coming up, but I kept ignoring them and just saying, you're not on the right path. And then it kept getting louder and louder and louder. And finally, I got to a point where I was just really sick and I had to take time off from my job in the middle of busy season, no less.
Wow.
I had to go to my boss in February and say, I need to take leave from work, which for me was a real challenge. And because I felt like I believed all the voices in my head at that point that were like, you're a failure, you're a disappointment, they're going to say all of these things about you. But I had to put myself first and step away from what I was doing and really take care of my health at that point.
Yeah, because if you don't put yourself first, then yourself is going to put everything else after that.
Right.
And you don't have any control.
You get to sit down or fall down.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's really where I got to at that point. And now I can look back and see where there were so many points along the way that I really missed all those signals that were saying, hey, Robina, you need to stop. You need to think about what you're doing. And, is this really the direction that you want to go? So I did that. And it took a lot of work because I had really got to this point in my career and my personal life where I wasn't happy who I was in my career. And, I had, got to this place where I thought that I was supposed to be. And I was making the money. I was, had everything, but I just wasn't happy. And I was paying everybody to live my life is what I was doing.
Oh.
And so, and I wasn't happy as a mom. I wasn't happy as a wife. I wasn't happy as an employee, and something needed to change.
Yeah.
So then came how do I create that change in my life and what do I want it to look like? And I knew that I needed to do something different in my life. And I wanted to do something different with my life. Whether it was even in my career, it didn't mean that I had to leave my career. It just, I wanted to be different. And that was really the catalyst of it all. I wanted to be different in my life.
Yeah.
So, and that's really what we're, talking about today is who do we want to be?
Well, and it sounds like you kind of wanted to move towards one-on-one connections with people, right?
Right.
Yeah, in your previous business, you were probably dealing with a lot of numbers and papers and occasionally with people, but now you actually get to look people in the eye face to face and help them.
Right. Well, and that's what I found I truly loved and valued it throughout my entire career is I loved working with my team members within my firm and mentoring them, helping them along the way. I loved the connections with my clients and interacting with them.
Sure.
And that was part of what I brought into my consulting business is when I went out and sat down with my clients, I wanted to make accounting not feel so scary. Let's bring it down to a very simple level. And even as I transitioned.
We love here at Ask a Bookkeeper, exactly that.
Yeah. And it's just even in the money coaching kind of aspect, when we're talking about cash flow planning, in reality, it really is just adding and subtracting. It's when you bring in that energy and all of this other stuff. And it's really the emotions of it that people bring into it that makes it feel so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to help people walk through and work through.
Yeah.
Very
It
good.
comes down to intentionality, I've found. People feel frightened and out of control when they haven't made clear choices. And it sounds like that's a big part of what you're talking about, is making those clear choices. And I think what you said earlier particularly resonates with a lot of the accounting professionals on our call, as far as that something not quite fitting, the feeling of dissatisfaction and paying other people to live your life, and not fulfilling. We so often talk about how comparison is the thief of joy, but it's also the thief of validation and our overall human experience. And we build up our lives to be successful based upon what everyone else seems to be telling us we should be doing. And
Right.
it's not really effective. And so few of us really ask ourselves that big question: who do we want to be? What is it that we really want? What is going to make us feel happy and successful and thriving, rather than just trapped, stuck, feeling like we are, wage slaves even within our own businesses. It's amazing. We were talking with a woman yesterday who was like, feeling a little bit stuck and feeling like something needed to change. But at the same time, she's a business owner and she's got employees and things depending on her. How do you make changes like that and take risks like that when there's other people depending on you? And especially if you're a mom and there's a family depending on you, there's a lot of big questions there. So I would love for you to share a little bit more of the detail, Robina, of what that transition looked like for you, and some of the tools that you employed to get there.
Yeah. So for me, part of it was just looking at, initially I just was implementing it within myself and in my job, because I had been doing it the way that I thought that it was supposed to be done. And I started just looking at myself and what wasn't working. And then what was it that I wanted from other people? There was this expectation that I wanted from other people, but I wasn't willing to give. So I started transforming the relationships within the people that I actually worked with. And trust was a big one. I realized I had an issue with trusting people. And so therefore, it's really hard for people to trust me if I don't trust them. And then, I had another part of me that felt like vulnerability was being a weakness. And if I was vulnerable or if I showed myself to people, then that somehow made me a weaker employee. So I just really started changing my mindset. I worked with a coach. I started reading a lot and learning about myself. And then when I decided, I need to make a change and go in a different direction for myself personally, it wasn't easy, but I also started looking at my finances and saying, how can I do this? Because I'm going to leave a career that is very lucrative and go into my own business, which, it's an unknown as to how much I'm going to make. So I started restructuring my life and my finances in order to make that happen. So it was a lot of personal work and being honest with myself about what it was that I wanted to do, but also really facing those fears and facing those false beliefs that I couldn't do it. You're not good enough. Who's going to want to work with you? All of those things. And just like, okay, those aren't real. Like, I have years of experience. I have years of knowledge. I can do this, and I can do it the way that I want to do it, and the way, that I want to structure it, and create a life around my family and around the things that I want to do, versus building my life around my job.
That's fantastic.
So it sounds like you have a really deep experience for your own transformation. I'm curious, how do you bring that to your clients?
With my clients, it just depends on where they are and where they want to go. I look at it as it's a journey for them. And I ask them, where do you want to go? And let me help guide you. And, so if they, maybe they want to work on their money, and we go in that direction, or perhaps it's more personal. Maybe it's within their own career. And so it's really just personal to each of them, but at the center of it all, it's really kind of looking at those false beliefs that they've built up, and how do we start working through those? How do they create new beliefs, new tools, new habits in their own life, so that they can kind of change their way of thinking, and, you know, like the primitive way, and move through that old way of thinking and move into more of, like, you know, we were talking before this, the positive way, and retrain their brain to really tap into who they are at their core, and get out of that old way of thinking.
So I want to dig a little bit more into that, because our audience who's watching this now wasn't present for our pre-show conversation.
Yeah.
We were talking about those limiting beliefs, those false beliefs, and those fears, and how those fears inside of us can get us into our fight or flight, fight, flight, freeze mindset, which is the limbic brain, the reptilian brain that is there. It puts us into survival mode, which gets us locked down and fixed and unable to brainstorm, think creatively, think outside the box, and be able to put our prefrontal cortex, our real thinking part of the brain, into action to work for us to be able to do these things. And so that's one of the reasons you brought Mr. T today.
Yes.
We've got an example of the reptilian brain right here on hand.
Exactly. Yeah.
Being able to communicate our dreams and our vision, and be able to do these amazing things together. So when we're working with clients, Robina, how do you help your clients past those, what you call false beliefs, and help them to get out of that that fight, flight, freeze mindset? How do you notice when they're stuck, and how do you help them work through that?
Well, there's a couple of things that I do. One of the things is just remind, like Penny, we were talking beforehand about your business and how your passion is making pies.
Right.
But
Yeah,
if you're dealing with a vendor and maybe they're not delivering your blueberries on time, or if you're working with an employee and they're not showing up to work on time, that you may move out of that space that you're normally in, who you are when you're working in your passion, and that, you know, the reptilian in you, that primitive way of thinking, may come out in you.
Sure.
And so now you've moved out of, you know, your alignment and who you normally are. And so I just ask, you know, ask people, like, who do you want to be today? Like, if you're going into the conversation with that employee or that vendor, who do you want to be in that conversation?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and that's a really great practice, because it doesn't really teach people, like, everybody's going to go into fight or flight once in a while. And so practicing that, asking yourself, who do you want to be? And then moving back into that state, that's really what you want to do, is learn how to get out of fight or flight, not so much avoid getting into it in the first place.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and set that intention at the beginning of the day. For myself, I encourage my clients to journal, just even a little bit, even if it's just one line, but by writing down the intention for the day, and I sign my name to it, because it's like I'm making a contract with myself. Like, by setting my intention for the day, it's like it's there. It's not like I just thought it, or I speak it out loud. And when I go into meetings, it's like, this is my intention, and I'm putting it out there into the universe, so that it's not just a, you know, like a passing, fleeting thought.
That's beautiful. Well, and what was going through my mind as we were talking about the reptilian brain and this fight or flight, fight, flight, freeze is, you know, don't start channeling procrastinator gator. For any of our audience members who haven't seen any of our episodes with our other co-host, our friend Procrastinator Gator often joins us on the show, and he owns a jet boat tour company down in the bayou, and he tends to put off a lot of the business things, like checking his email and doing his payroll on time, because he's not as good at those things. And if we think about it in terms of that reptilian brain, that limbic brain, what that can be is basically the survival kicking in of, there's an avoidance trigger going on there that makes us want to run away when we have those things going on. But if we can be more intentional and get out of our own way and ask for help, so that's where working with a coach or if you're working with a business strategist or an accountant that does business strategy with you, having somebody who offers that reflection and can help you work through those challenges can be huge. I had an accountant, I had a client contact me just this last week. They are looking for a new tax accountant in addition to working with Polymath for their bookkeeping and such. They're needing to find an international tax accountant, and they're interviewing some people. And the email that they got from this tax accountant sounded really good, but as he was reading how technical it was and such like that, he's like, I'm really kind of concerned about how much this is going to cost. And just reminding him, hey, we're going for the win-win here. And you reached out to these people because they are the experts in exactly the questions that you have. So the question is not about the price so much, as much about what they can do to further your business goals and how much is that going to be worth to your business in the long term. And that was what grounded him back into the win-win mindset, getting past that idea of the zero-sum game and sticker shock and, fight, flight, freeze of the sticker shock, the price tag, budgeting.
Yeah.
There's so many triggers in our money conversations and our business conversations, and we just need to figure out how to work through them together, like you said, Robina, with that transparency and vulnerability and authenticity.
Yep.
Well, yes. And, even on a personal level, when you're looking at your finances, even having conversations with a spouse or yourself about money, if you're going into a job to talk about salary, Penny's like setting prices for pies and negotiating contracts for her vendors. There's so much happening in the background that people aren't aware of. You start collecting information as early as 2 years old relative to money, things about money, your behaviors and your beliefs. And so they can show up and you don't even realize it. So that, procrastinator Gator, there is stuff happening there unconsciously that he's not even aware of. And I talk to people about this, that if you are one of those people, how do you approach a situation to eliminate that? So maybe you don't feel so anxious about having that conversation, or getting your financials together for the bookkeeper come tax season, or having that discussion with the CPA, because procrastinator Gator can get really overwhelmed fast. Right. And so instead of like trying to just go, I'm going to eat that whole pie, it's like, I'm going to just take a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there. Whereas other people, they don't want to buy it until they like have all the information. So it's like understanding who you are and how you are in order to make decisions is really important. And as advisors to our clients, if we know how they are, we can advise them better. And I tell people, like, if you're one of those people who gets easily overwhelmed, your advisor needs to know that, so that they're not just giving you like the whole, IRS code. And then you're just like, okay, I don't know what to do.
Too much information, panic.
Yeah. But then if you're somebody who's like, I need all of the details before I can give you an answer, then as an advisor, you want to know that as well. Yeah. So knowing where people come from is really important, because maybe Penny doesn't need to know every single detail. Maybe she just wants to know, okay, when do I need to file, how much, and all of that, or else she's just going to shut down and then she's not going to make any decisions.
Right. Well, and really simplify it. I kind of wish that we could have Gator on the show with us right here too, but unfortunately that requires a lot of editing that we can't really do right now.
Well, and he's off in the bayou somewhere, right?
Yeah, no doubt. But something else that I was thinking about as you were talking about incorporating, simplifying the tasks for the business and stuff. I think with Gator and myself both, and probably with both of you, I would hazard, when you run away from things, with the fight or the flight, a lot of times you have something that you do that allows you to recover. For me, it was making pies, and for Gator, it was being out on the water. So a really good way to do that is to incorporate that into your business. I started a pie shop because I know I love making pies. If things start stressing me out for money, I can always go out and make pies, relax, and make money. It's pretty good. And then just simplifying, delegating the tasks that you don't want to do, payroll and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes. I agree. And that's one of the other things that I talk to people about is how important it is to let the creative side of you out. As a CPA, I stopped creating. I became so consumed by my work that I stopped tapping into things that I love to do. I love to draw. I love to just make artistic things, and I stopped doing it. And once I stepped away from it, I started painting, I started drawing, I started doing these boards behind me. And it really allows things to come out of me that I didn't even know that were in there. And I journal upon journal. And so I tell people, find that thing that's within you and let it out. If it's singing, if it's baking, if it's knitting, whatever it is, find it and build it into your day. And so I try to remind myself, like, someone had shared with me, like, do at least 3 things each day. Like, make that your to-do list. If you add more, it's too overwhelming and you can get too much on your plate and then feel like you've failed for the day. Yeah. So I just say, okay, I need to do 3 things. 1 for my soul, 1 for myself, and 1 for my wealth. And whatever those look like. And so there are on days that my wealth is creating. Maybe it is that I sit down and journal. Maybe it is that I go out and I go for a run, so you just have to find that thing that speaks to you so that you can tap into who you are at the core and let it come out. And then also to get out of all of those false beliefs and those voices that are in your head, and and kind of that loop, even where if you were in a negative headspace about that conversation you had with your employee, or maybe you baked that cake and it didn't come out the way you wanted, and you served it anyway, but you're like, oh my gosh, what is that customer thinking? Maybe they didn't like it. What if they don't come back? It could destroy my business. Like, just let it go. Like, just let it go and be confident knowing like you delivered a really awesome cake. And a lot of times we're just hard on ourselves.
Right. Exactly.
Well, and sometimes those cakes that we think don't work is the start of a whole new recipe. Some of the best inventions have been discovered by mistake.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we are at the top. Oh, go ahead.
Just one more thing on that. I would say even like being honest about those pies that failed. And when you're honest with your employees about that, those even, I think, create really good, I think, strong moments with your employees, because they're like, oh, they're human, just like me.
Right.
And then
we don't have to be perfect connection. And no one would like us if we were.
Yeah. And my employees, I got a pretty good relationship with them. So they'll come up and say, hey, Penny, you do pies. Don't do cakes. They don't work.
Did I say cake earlier? Pie. Sorry.
No, it's great. I did experiment with cakes, and I don't do it anymore.
It's all about the pie.
It's all about the pie. Yeah.
So we are at the top of the hour, so I want to make sure that we get wrapped up. And I think that just reiterating what you were just saying about those 3 things each day. You said something for your soul, something for was it wealth and health?
For yourself, most important for yourself.
Soul, self, and wealth. I love that. That is a fantastic kind of simple to do of ensuring that each of us is really fulfilling our inner needs. And I would say even take that a step further. And how can you weave those things into your business and make it so that your play is part of your work? I mean, that's a big part of what we've done here at Ask a Bookkeeper, is make it so that we're playing with freaking puppets. I mean, this is my job.
I love it.
And I mean, this is part of my job of how we give back to the community. But I finally stopped denying myself and realized that I can't do it any other way. If I don't let the creativity out, everything in my world just stops. Mm-hmm. And I'm betting that there's other people watching this episode that I think that the message on your website that we started with would really resonate. There's going to be that moment, and there's probably several moments where we realize again and again where we can't deny our souls anymore. We have to be ourselves, and anything that we do that's keeping us from being ourselves, it's not going to work. Just stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Robina. This has been a ton of fun, and thank you.
Thank you.
For joining us as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. T. Thanks, Robina. It's really been a pleasure. This is very inspiring and a lot of fun.
Oh, Thank you, Penny.
And for anyone who's watching this, Robina is on the Ask a Bookkeeper Facebook group. So if you have questions for her, you can go ahead and post in the Facebook group and tag her. That's a really great way to track her down. And I will also put your website, Robina, in the description of this video so that people can find you easily and read that beautiful message again.
Yes.
So thanks everyone so much, and have a wonderful October, and we will see you next month on Ask a Bookkeeper.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks, everybody.